areas. But of course, as we know, the rural areas of this country are not where the population is centered. And so I did a search. I have the old vote builder database that most Democratic campaigns use. And you can do searches based on zip code radiuses and things like that. So I figured out that 80% of the registered voters in this district live within 25 miles of downtown Birmingham. And you would never guess that by looking at the map, but that's where the people are. So yes, it is a heavily suburban district. And what's interesting is that, of course, there's no perfect metric for gauging the exact left-right alignment of the members of Congress, because it really depends on how you measure that. But some groups out there would rate Gary Palmer, the incumbent here, as the most conservative member of Congress. And to think that somebody who is representing an 80% suburban district in 2018 could be the most conservative member of Congress, I think that's insane. I don't think it's tenable. And I think that when we start going door to door and talking to voters and we explain exactly what his record is and what he's been doing, I really don't think that the many, many people here who just voted for Doug Jones, possibly the first Democratic vote either they've cast in their lifetimes or at least have cast in the last decade, those are not the sort of people who want to be casting a vote for the most conservative member of Congress. They just don't.
And most conservative member of this Congress is really saying something.
Yeah, this is, I get that. I can't cite the exact article, but in Alabama, there is a state-level online publication called Yellowhammer News because, of course, Alabama is the Yellowhammer state. And Yellowhammer News is a very conservative, it's sort of a cross between National Review and Breitbart, but it's just focused on Alabama only. And it was either last year or 2016, they were the ones that touted the award that Palmer had received from one of these organizations about him being the most conservative. So this website was very proud of the fact that he had gotten that designation, but I just think it's not a good fit for this district.
So what are the issues that you're hearing from people that are really concerning them right now?
Well, I'll tell you what, this is kind of scary terrain for me, but right now in this area, there is a lot of energy around gun control, kind of the same vibe as you might get from Parkland being kind of a more upscale suburban district. That issue is really resonating right now. And we have, like many areas around the country, we have a March for Our Lives that's about to happen on the 24th. And my wife is a high school teacher. I have two kids who are in public school right now. One's in elementary school, one is in middle school, but she's about to advance into high school. I have many friends who are teachers, and I'm very optimistic that this is a moment in time where young people are going to lead the way, and we're all finally fed up to the point where we have a chance to make a difference on this issue. And I'll tell you, when I started my campaign, I've actually announced last April, so I've been at this for a while. When I started my campaign, my thought process was, I'm running in Alabama, super conservative, super red, even though I would love to see some common sense gun reforms. I just need to be quiet and not talk about it, because if I talk about it, it's going to sink me and I'll have no chance. But with all that has gone on, and the more that I've thought about it, and more people I've talked to, I really think that not only is it morally necessary to take a stand and be public about supporting efforts to stop the massacre of school children, I think that it can help be a winning issue in suburban districts like this, because there are, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but there's a whole bunch of 18 and 19-year-old kids who either are seniors or just graduated, college kids, and they're scared. The teachers are scared, and they're sick of nothing ever getting done. And I think that this issue in particular can be a motivator for that generation. As many of us know who pay attention to politics, young people famously do not turn out to vote, but when their lives are on the line and they feel like this is a way to elect the right people who are going to finally make a difference and do something to stop these killings, I think they may turn out to vote. So I'm very optimistic on that front. And I never envisioned that I would ever focus on that issue in Alabama. But I think the time has come. And if it does end up not working and I don't get elected because I took a stand on gun control, then at least I was following my conscience and doing what I believe is right and not just trying to cow to the loudest voices on the opposing side. And, buddy, they are loud. The NRA folks are very, very loud, and it's kind of scary at times, but we got to do what's right. So that's rising up to the top for me. But I think, like many other folks nationwide, healthcare is a huge one because the Trump administration is gutting the Affordable Care Act. Even though they couldn't repeal it legislatively, it's amazing how many steps they're able to take to undermine it from a administrative perspective. Of course, we know they ended the individual mandate, and they stopped the cost-sharing subsidies, and they're trying to allow these temporary plans that don't protect people with pre-existing conditions. They're trying to make those go long-term. So there's so many attacks on that. Premiums are going to keep rising. Copays are going to keep rising. So that's huge. There's a lot going on that we can successfully run on and do great things.
And you are the only Democrat running in this district.
That is correct. That's one of the reasons I announced so early, was because I wanted to make sure that since I was serious about it, I didn't want somebody else to come along and kind of undercut me. And as I said, I announced almost a year ago. And in that time, I heard about a couple of different people that were considering it. And fortunately, I had laid enough groundwork that people alerted me to those possible challengers, and I arranged meetings and we talked. And I don't think either of them were all that serious, but if I hadn't already been in the race and been dedicated and laid the groundwork, I think one of them might have actually stepped up and done it. So, yeah, I worked very hard to be the only one. Even though this is a red district, I'm amazed at some of the races that have Democratic primaries this year. Districts like state house districts that haven't had any candidates in many, many years, all of a sudden have 2 or 3 candidates running. So it's kind of bonkers. Yeah, I'm the only one, and then Gary Palmer does not have any primary opposition, so it's just going to be he and I this November.
That's a long time to battle that out until November.
Yeah, it is. And what's good for me is that I'm very confident that he is not taking me seriously. As I mentioned, this is, I think, the 13th reddest district in the country. So he doesn't think it's possible for him to lose. He is not doing anything at all about me. He's not paying attention. He's not acknowledging me. And that's fine, because that just gives me time to do all the grassroots organizing and get people on board, get the campaign together, and we're going to catch him by surprise.
Are all of the grassroots support that built up to get Doug Jones elected, are those things still in place and ready to help this November with the midterms?
Absolutely. So Democrats in Alabama have felt hopeless is a word that I would use. There hasn't been any energy. There hasn't been any belief that we could win for a very long time. And that is the single greatest thing that Doug Jones did for the state so far is he did help us realize that it is possible for a Democrat to win here. And not only that, but there was so much energy and enthusiasm about defeating Roy Moore that huge numbers of people got involved and for the first time in their lives started phone banking and canvassing. It's many thousands of people statewide did the first political field organizing of their entire lives for his campaign. And yes, those people have tasted victory. They're excited, and they believe that we can win more races this year. And many of them have already stepped in and have started volunteering for my campaign, and they're volunteering for other campaigns like State House and State Senate. In some cases, they're becoming campaign managers for first-time candidates in some of the smaller races. So this is the most organizing the Democrats have done in modern history in Alabama, and that is something that I don't think many people appreciate, and it's going to shock some people when we win some surprise races in November.
That's really exciting. Yeah, it's not just the first time that people in Alabama were doing stuff, but for instance, I wrote 165 postcards to voters from Chicago saying, vote for Doug Jones. And so I think a lot of us were sort of awakened to the idea that all of this grassroots organizing can really matter.
Absolutely. And honestly, that was, of course, I decided to run before all that got going. But when I decided to run, I had already seen the enthusiasm from the resistance, and we had already had an Indivisible chapter get up and running and turn out hundreds of people to a town hall to address concerns with Gary Palmer. So seeing that enthusiasm on the ground level really made me believe that if I were to jump in the race, there would be people right there in the trenches with me to help me get it done. And that's why if I hadn't seen that, if I hadn't seen the enthusiasm and the numbers, I don't know that I would have felt that it was worth the sacrifice to get in. So a lot of reasons to be excited and to be hopeful right now.
So I have to ask, are you going to have beer party fundraisers?
Yes, absolutely. I've already done that somewhat. One of my earlier very small fundraisers was just a happy hour at one of the breweries that opened up specifically because of the law changes that I helped accomplish. And of course, now every time that somebody has a fundraiser in their home, they always email me and ask about beer recommendations for what to have. So, that was a big part of why that organization was successful changing the beer laws, is that beer is fun. People like it. It's a social lubricant. It's just a good angle. And 20 years ago, somebody running on success changing or liberalizing alcohol laws would have been the kiss of death, but times have changed and people see what a benefit that it's been for the state. So anybody left out there who is anti-alcohol is the sort of person that would not vote for a Democrat if it was the last person on earth. So I don't have to worry about that.
All right. Well, is there anything else that you would like to make sure that people know about you or about Alabama?
I would just say the state has a reputation for being far and away one of the most conservative in the country. And even in the wake of the Doug Jones victory, I don't think we've shaken that, because far too many people assume that the only reason that he won was that Roy Moore was so uniquely terrible and that it can never be replicated ever again. And obviously, as somebody running for office right now as a Democrat, that mentality drives me insane. So I want people to realize that there is a widespread distaste for Donald Trump among educated, intelligent people in this state. And it's not a story of Roy Moore. It's a story of changing demographics, of changing perspectives, of people rethinking what it means to be a Republican in the age of Trump, of democratic enthusiasm, of people realizing that they're not alone and that they can get plugged